welcome to the Vibrational Shift podcast. I am so excited to be joined by Jannelle Cortez. She is a choreographer, a travel professional. She's the founder of Groove Fit Dance Company and Groove Trips LLC, both companies that promote community, accessibility, and sustainability. Jannelle, welcome on. I am so excited to have you
Thank
here
you.
today.
I'm excited to be here with you. I hope you're enjoying all the nature and sounds that are behind me.
I think it's beautiful. And there is a giant bird that is trying to make it into this video one way or the other.
Yes,
Even though
yes.
you switch sides, I saw him again in the background. So maybe he'll
I
make
know.
another
I keep
appearance.
seeing him fly behind me too. He's huge.
Um, well, I want to jump right in because I think there's so much for us to cover. And for those of you that don't know or have not heard me talk about it yet, Jannelle and I are co-hosting a retreat in just a couple of months. It'll be our second time doing this one together. It's a little bit of a different twist than last year's. Last year's was a sacred self-love retreat that we did actually stateside here in West Virginia. And this time around, we are heading over to Tulum, Mexico. But before we start talking about the retreat, Jannelle, I'd love for you to do a quick introduction to yourself, and then maybe you can tell everyone how we first met and
Of
how we
course.
connected.
Well, my name is Jannelle, and I'm the proud founder of Groove Trips. I'm here in Silver Spring, Maryland, which is where I spent a lot of my many of my formative years, middle school and high school. I'm DC raised, though the first 10 years of my life I spent there, and then my family moved out to Silver Spring. When I was around 10, 11 years old. I actually met Johanna through a mutual friend, someone who was taking yoga and meditation classes from her, and that I went to high school with. And my friend Courtney and we connected over Facebook, and she told me about the amazing experiences that Johanna was hosting here in Silver Spring. And she saw all the work that I was doing with my travel business. Some of them were retreats. And she just thought that we would make a great connection and possibly be able to do some work together in the future. And she was totally right. The moment that I met Johanna, I immediately took to her, and I shouldn't talk about you in the third person. You're right here, right? So I immediately took to you, and I just knew that you were a person that I wanted to have in my life. And what was crazy about when we met is that even though we had just talked about possible collaborations, I actually went on your retreat, um really because I was at a point in my life where I didn't really know where to turn and what to do. I signed up for one of your retreats not as a person that was going to collaborate with you, but really a person who needed what you were offering. And I always say that when I met you, you kind of met me like on my knees. I mean, I was just at a really tough point in my life and really needing balance, because I was experiencing burnout, in so many ways. And so when I first joined the retreat over that you had at Casa Om, it I really attribute it to saving my sanity in that at that time. And I have been a devotee and now a colleague ever since. I saw the importance of taking time out for yourself, and for me, it's important for me to share that with my friends, my family, my clients, people that I care for, and people that I want to, I want them to experience self care as well. So, being a dance teacher and an owner of a dance company and being a travel company and a person who basically has to, be around people at all times and constantly, um, anticipating other people's needs, I found myself giving and giving and giving, and getting to a point where I no longer had anything in the tank for myself. So, this entrepreneurship journey is not for the weary. And I'm sure that many of us, even if we're entrepreneurs or not, we have a 9 to 5 or we're stay at home moms that our families require so much from us. We oftentimes are ignoring ourselves. And so I'm so happy to have met you and have learned from you the importance of taking time for myself, loving on myself, and really putting myself first so that I could be a service to the people that I love and people that I want to offer services to.
Let's take a step back for a second, because people that may not know you or follow you don't realize the extent of when she says she was giving. Jannelle doesn't slow down. Jannelle's like a tornado that comes through and has literally, I feel like every week when we're connecting, it's like, well, what city are you in? Like, what country are you
Right,
in this week?
right.
But I want to talk a little bit about groove trips for a second. So you travel, you take groups all over the world, literally all
Yeah,
over the world. And there are a couple of trips that, since I've known you over the last couple of years, that stand out in my mind. And if you're listening, I highly recommend going onto her site, signing up, setting up a profile to see the different destinations that she takes people out to. But there was a trip you did last year, and I don't remember the number. I remember it's a really large group that you took over to
to Ghana.
Ghana. Yes.
Yeah.
And you talked a little bit about the impact that that had. And I remember as you were talking about it and seeing you light up with, like, not only, the actual beauty of the destination, but the spiritual element of what happened
Yes,
for people to be in that space. Can you talk a little bit about that trip for just a second?
absolutely. So I was privileged enough to I got a call from two churches. They were the Presbyterian churches of Ghana that were here in Norfolk and Chicago. And they reached out to me because their congregations wanted to do a kind of like a return to home type of trip where they would go and connect with their African roots. These were Black American, this is a Black American congregation primarily, of all ages, and many of them had never been on the continent, and the opportunity arose for them to come together and put a beautiful itinerary together that I assisted with, and it was basically almost like 77 of them that ended up joining this trip. And they did everything from the W.E. Du Bois Museum. They went to the slave dungeons. They reenacted the last baths that the slaves took before they crossed the Atlantic. It was a very emotional, a very spiritual trip. They were able to pray together in the mornings and have service, with other Ghanaians, with other members of Presbyterian churches in Ghana. So it was a really beautiful cross cultural connection. And it was a way for them to learn history, from their own people. And that was a really beautiful experience. It was very difficult because there was 77 people, but what really kept me going was knowing that for many people, this would be maybe their last trip, because a lot of the folks that went, they were a little older. Some of them were in their 60s, 70s, 80s. And, that's a really long trip to take. A lot of them had mobility issues. And so I knew that, this was extra special for them. And so even though it was a little difficult, organizing, I had a great team on the ground of 10 people that assisted, and we were able to give these folks an unforgettable experience, really an experience of a lifetime.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about being in some of those different locations that you took people to, and the weight of the energy that you could feel as you went in. And I remember there being, like you said, that they got to go and pray with other fellow Ghanaians that were there. But they also got a chance to, like, pray for their ancestors, right? Was there
Absolutely.
a ceremony or something that was done on the beach? Am
There,
I remembering that
there were
correctly?
quite a few. Yeah, there were ceremonies on the beach, like right on the Atlantic. there were ceremonies that were inside the slave dungeons, right? He's like, I can't imagine what that feels like to be in a place where your ancestors were in shackles and were, held captive and kept in just deplorable conditions. I mean, we got to step into a lot of those rooms that had no, ventilation, no windows. It was dark and dank, and like, it was just terrible to even imagine, us in this time, 2023, 2024. um, with the different amenities that we're accustomed to, it was just uncomfortable being there physically for even like 10 minutes, and just imagining what that was like for days and days and days and weeks on end. That was so hard on an emotional, a physical, um, and a spiritual level. It was, to even be there for just seconds. It's like, we can't even tolerate this right now. How did these people tolerate this for as long as they did? And then us knowing that this was just a moment, right? Like, we're in there for a moment, and then we step out, and then we go into a different place, and then they tell us the history or what happened in that location. But to compound our ancestors' experiences with the uncertainty of what was coming next. I mean, I think that was so profound, and it was so painful to even imagine. So, yeah, it's like our duty to go and pay homage to them, to show them that their sacrifices, even though they weren't voluntary, um, they weren't in vain. There are people who are living, thankfully, a different life, a better life. And, I always like to say that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, to be able to go and visit the places that cause so much pain to them and to others. Just to be able to be there and just pay homage to them is such a privilege.
Um, and there was another trip that you did recently. And I feel like I've heard you say this before, but in my mind, I think of it as like Cuba is your bread and butter for a lot of different reasons. But you just came back
Yeah.
recently from a trip where you had a pretty large group as well. Can you talk a little bit about the trips that you do to Cuba? Because I know that you do those pretty often as
Yeah.
well.
So my husband is Cuban, and due to my visiting Cuba and falling in love with him, and kind of figuring out, like, how are we going to keep this love thing going on? He said, you already have this travel business. Let's just start bringing people to Cuba. I'll be like your boots on the ground. And I was like, all right, well, let's do it. We had our first trip, 2016, where we had 17 people on our first trip. And that was when Obama went to Havana and, had the ceremonial opening of the embassy in Havana that had been closed for decades, basically since the revolution, the the revolution where Fidel took over the country. Um, so it was incredible at that time because so many people wanted to go to Cuba and learn about Cuba, and they felt like, okay, finally Cuba is open to us. We can go and visit freely. And things have, changed politically since then. And what I've been doing is still taking people on legal trips to Cuba in a way where they can support the Cuban people, because that is one of the categories of travel that we're still allowed to go under. So, what I do is create itineraries where Americans, whether they're arts enthusiasts or they're actual artists, they can come down to Cuba and connect with the artist community down there, with children that are aspiring to be in the arts, or really any other cultural institution. We can go down and have cultural interaction with them, cultural exchange with them, um, where it's beneficial for them. So it's sustainable. And it's also beneficial for us because we're learning so much about ourselves, and really about their resilience through, the times that they've had, which have not been very easy. I mean, being cut off really from a major part of the world. So these trips are really phenomenal, and I got to take a group of 40 members of the New York City Black MBA, like the Masters of Business Association. And they went down and I was able to coordinate an embassy event for them where they were able to go down and speak to members of the Havanian um, private sector. These are Havanian entrepreneurs that have been, been recognized by the U.S. Embassy there and given grants to, promote their work in the private sector. And we were able to bring these 40 individuals down to talk to them about what it's been like for them enterprising here in the United States, because we have so much wisdom to impart. We've been living in a capitalist society for forever, in comparison to them forever. Right. And for them, they're still in a communist country, but they're creating an informal market and a private sector in which, some people are thriving. So, but they've only, been doing this for maybe about 8 years, 8 to 10 years. So it was really nice for them to ask questions and to have members of the MBA Association answer questions and give advice and talk about what the future, in technology holds and how that will be beneficial for them in their enterprises. So yeah, it was a really special trip.
We're going to go deep 5 days, 4 nights in Tulum, Mexico for the Fall Equinox Self-Empowerment Retreat. And it's all about this notion of how do we find balance, equanimity in our lives. And so I hope you'll join us. And for podcast listeners today, I am offering a special deal. Make sure to email me hello@lunaserenity.com for all of the details and to snag your special discount plus one of the last spots to this retreat. It is September 19th through the 23rd in Tulum, Mexico. I hope to see you there.
Yeah. So folks, you see why I say she does not stop, because she takes groups down. And I see you as a guide, right? That the things that you are taking people to see, sometimes they may come to you, or maybe find themselves on a trip with you and not realize the other doors that get opened. I think that's true whenever we travel.
Yeah.
There is something that's awakened within us that's like, oh, I want to learn more. Or maybe it takes them to, get curious about their own lineages. So,
Yeah, I think it's important. I always tell people, especially with Cuba, when they come to Cuba, I give them as much information as possible because people are very curious, right? They want to know, what is this trip going to be like? I mean, because they thought it was taboo for so long to even be able to travel there. And so, I give them the itinerary, I give them an orientation before we leave, but I always say, you know what? You've got to let go and you've got to let Cuba happen. And I kind of use that across the board with a lot of things. You have to let go and let it, insert, whatever that is, happen. And I know that that's difficult for us Americans. We like to know what's happening at all times. We're very regimented. We're calendly and zoomed out, and everything is like tick, tick, tick. And we need to know. But really, a lot of the magic happens in the spontaneous moments. And that to me is, I can curate what I think is the best trip in the world, what you may think is the best itinerary or whatever, but really the magic happens in the unknown.
That is a perfect segue. Going back to the retreat that we're hosting. It's true. There is and especially here in the DC area, like this, like grasping of wanting to hold on to the control of like what's going to happen. And I resisted even putting the itinerary up on the website of like what we're going to do each day, because, you might get to a location or to a retreat and decide actually the energy of this group is completely different than what I was thinking originally. Like, it's really about being present and being in the moment. When I think about even the retreats that I've gone on as a participant, like, they are moments of major transformation, because I try, and it's hard to let go of like, what are my expectations going into this? And can I just be satisfied and okay with, I'm handing over, my trust to these facilitators to know that they are going to curate an experience for me that is going to guide me into more exploration of who I am, what I want to, explore about my life during this finite time that I have with everyone. And so for the retreat that we're leading in a couple months, we're going to be there during the fall equinox. And a couple of different threads as we've been talking, I, was like, wow, this really does connect for me. As you were talking about the trip that you took, the group of 77 individuals on, I think about, for me, the last couple of years, I've spent a lot of time and energy really trying to connect with my ancestors. My parents are from Ecuador and Nicaragua, and which eventually led me to Mexico. And as I was looking at dates for this year, I was like, I want to do something around the equinox. And the equinox, for those of you that don't know, that are listening and maybe considering joining us, we're going to be there September 19th through the 23rd. And in Mayan culture, the equinox was actually considered to, celebrated with so many different rituals and ceremonies to really harness that incoming energy. And when I think about where I've been personally in my life for the last about a year of this place of transformation, of things drastically changing, I've really been thinking about how do you find that balance? And it's been, we all, I think, struggle with balance, especially if you live here in the United States, where we are in a constant go, go, go. I have a full-time job. I have unit serenity. I have my kids. I have dog. Like, you have all the things that keep you busy. And Jannelle, like, you are always on the go as well. So when I look at the last year of what has been able to give me that balance, it's a variety of different practices, but also a reminder for me of like, it can't all be serious. Like there has to be a bit of play. And that's where I love the energy that you bring in, especially with the dancing. Like there is a part of myself that I feel like I can only tap into when I'm moving my body. And you have this gift of making whoever is dancing with you feel like they're doing exactly what you're doing, even if you're not.
Well, I think that I am very descriptive when I teach my classes, and I think that that absolutely helps. I also really believe that we hold so much emotion in our muscles, in our hips, especially, and which is why it's so important to gyrate. and no, but seriously speaking, I think back to the last retreat that we did in West Virginia, where we actually had that belly dance component. We had a really heavy day. We had a heavy evening and we had a heavy morning. And there was a lot of, there was a lot of outpouring of emotion. I think that, people were really going in and they were writing a lot. And I think the energy was heavy because there was a lot of work that was being done. And I just remember the moment we started dancing, like at first, I think people were just like, okay, I don't know if I'm in the mood for this right now. I just finished bawling my eyes out and I'm all writing about all this like stuff that's going on with me, blah, blah, blah. And it was something magical that happened when we just, we wrap the veils around us. And, it was like that figurative, like unwrapping and unveiling and shedding all of the layers, right? That we have to, that we feel the need to put on ourselves in order for us to, function and survive and thrive in this environment, right? And as we're moving, you could just feel everything get so much lighter. And it was like a clearing, you're like shaking off and, twisting off and unbinding and releasing, all of this stress and, even trauma, things that we hold in ourselves physically. And all of that stuff, that's the beauty of dance. And even just focusing on something that's not the thoughts in your mind for a moment, just being like, wait, what did she do? Wait, what was that? She took 2 steps here, 2 steps there, and giving your mind that break of not thinking about whatever's going on in your life, but just, thinking about that moment, just being present in that moment. I think it's such a great mental break. It's also super fun. The music is so fun. The movements are sexy and they're feminine. And you didn't even know that you could move like that. You're like, wait, I didn't know that those muscles even moved in that direction. And just seeing what your body can do, it's so confidence building. Um, and there's just something so beautiful about, moving your hips in like circles and figure eights and things that are like inherently feminine. And tapping into that and getting back in our bodies is something that's so transformative and so healing.
Yeah. And I think whenever we move our body, whether it be through dance or if we are doing a more active style of yoga, there is this letting go that's happening. And it's also a letting go of maybe, like you were saying, the constant chatter that might be happening in your brain, because all you can do is actually listen to whoever's at the front of the
Oh,
room
yeah,
to try
yeah.
and keep up.
Yeah, and I'm
And
like,
you're,
follow me, let's go. And that you should just be busy doing that, not thinking about anything else.
yeah, and so that's one of the things that I really appreciate about being able to collaborate with you, is that there are a lot of different modalities that we do throughout our time together, whether it be sensual belly dance with Jannelle. I'm hoping we'll also do some Latin dance while we're together. We do have
Yes,
a couple of
definitely.
partners joining us on this particular with this group, but then also we'll be doing daily yoga, meditation, breath work, and um, like I said, different types of modalities to allow you to explore like what is going to work for you, not even work for you, but like what is a different way to do an
Hmm.
exploration of what's going on the inside. So, like I said, I resistantly put up an itinerary, but essentially what we will be doing during our time together is, there will be some sort of daily yoga, meditation, breath work, sunrise yoga, sunset yoga. They're the place where we're going. I didn't even mention this yet, but
Oh,
as
it's so
Janelle knows,
beautiful. My goodness. Oh,
yes,
it's just gorgeous.
the
Yeah.
villas are gorgeous. There are roof decks that allow you to have really beautiful sunrise yoga and sunset yoga. And we're also going to be doing, have you done a temazcal before?
No, never.
Okay. So we're doing one, and for anyone who's listened to past episodes where we talked about it, a temazcal for me is life changing. It is one of those experiences where no matter how many words I put to it, will not capture what it actually feels like to go through it. But essentially, it is like a sweat lodge um, rebirth experience. The temazcal that you go into, the actual physical place where you are entering into, is meant to be the womb of Mother Earth. So when you go
Wow.
in, you're going into like the self of you, part of you is going to die to be reborn. And the guide that will take us through it is going to, walk us through the different doors, what they call the doors of having this experience. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, definitely want to check this out. But we'll be together for 5 days and 4 nights at Kabalum. And I'm going to share, for those of you that are actually watching the video portion of this podcast, I'm going to share really quickly a couple of images while we continue to talk about the retreat, just so that you can see, like, when we say this place is gorgeous, it
Oh, unbelievable.
is stunning.
I can't
Um,
wait. So I'm also, because I am like, what do they say? I'm not just the president, but like I'm also like a client. I am taking my mom and my sister on this retreat because I feel like this is the perfect gift for someone that you care for, that you love. And my mom is actually going to be turning 70 on this trip.
oh,
And
it's
I
her
was like,
birthday?
yeah, it's her birthday. And I was like, there is no other way that I would want to celebrate with her. And I know that she is especially going to love that Damascus. That's going to be amazing.
Yes, it is amazing. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I love about, so I did a retreat in Tulum in 2022. We took a group out there. Um, is that the place Kabalum is actually in the jungles, and so as you are waking up, as you're moving through your day, you're really also getting a chance to be in relationship with the natural world around you. It's not near where all the tourists frequent in Tulum. But as you can see from the pictures here, like all of the buildings are, covered in this beautiful lush canopy from the natural world. And it is just, for me, one of the things that has been really healing over the last couple of years has been rediscovering my own connection with the natural world, allowing myself to literally go outside and just be, listen to the sound of the winds, getting connected with all of the elements, putting my feet in the dirt, like feeling myself supported by Mother Earth. Um, it's just one of those things that has been a part, like a vibrational shift for me in my own life of being able to reconnect with the natural world. So,
It's beautiful.
yeah.
I can't wait to be there.
I know, just under, what are we, like 2 months away?
Yeah.
2 months away before we'll be headed there.
This is my escape now. I'm in Silver Spring.
Well, that's
because
right.
if we would be doing this interview in New York, I would be in my apartment and these four walls. And no, I mean, I do any opportunity to come down and be around nature. And, it's amazing that I have this beautiful backdrop, in my mom's basically like backyard. So I'm lucky enough to have that. But, this is something else. Can't wait to be in that. Goodness.
It's gonna be beautiful. A chance for people to be in relationship with the natural world around them, a chance to do some self-exploration. Like I said, equal parts, you're going deep, but you're also going to have the chance to move through all of that, through the physical body, through dance, through yoga, through the breath. I don't know if I actually said this yet, but I am going to be bringing my instruments. So folks will also get the chance to receive sound healing. We'll do the temazcal. Everyone's going to get to go visit a cenote. If you've listened to past episodes, you have heard this is not the same cenote that I went to 2 years ago, which was in and of itself going through a portal to a whole different level of awakening. But this is supposed to be a much more chill version of that. It's also going to be a great time to align the body and the soul. Like, I think because of where I've been personally for the last several months, I have been experimenting with all different types of practices that do help me find those places of balance when it feels like you're never going to get there, especially when you are going through major moments of transformation of what feels like, how do I regulate my nervous system in this moment when everything feels like it's changing? And I feel like we all constantly go through these cycles. Like life is a continuous cycle, and there will be plenty of opportunity to explore, but also to be in community, which I think is something that I was going back through past retreat guests and their different feedback forms, and all of them called out like the level of community that's created during these retreats. So I'm really excited about that part as well.
It's really exciting to see the same people too come to retreats. So it's like you look forward to seeing them there. And that's actually one of my favorite parts too, is the people that I have met through your retreats. I mean, they're just phenomenal women who they've got so much going for them. But, that we all have that one thing in common, that we're givers, and, we need to look inward and really take better care of ourselves, just so we can be at our optimum. And so I always look forward to seeing, familiar faces.
Jannelle, is this going to be like your fourth retreat with me?
This is.
Yeah.
I told you, you're stuck with me now.
I was just thinking
stuck with me.
So I normally do I've done for the past several years what's called the Luna Goddess Retreat, which is like a very short window of time. It's a weekend, a Friday through a Sunday. And I forgot you came on the one before we did our retreat together, and you came on the one after. And then obviously we did the one together in the summertime. So now we'll be going to Tulum. I love that because it is the group that comes, it's always it's interesting what themes come up for people, like what stage
Yeah.
of life they're in and what they're going through. It always seems to line up perfectly.
Well, I
Um,
also want to say something just lastly on that note is that I have seen the progression from the first retreat, and there have been people that I've seen through the last like 3 retreats, and you do see a difference, there. And I don't know if it's because them just taking this break for themselves or knowing like, oh, okay, I know what I'm going to, what to expect in this retreat. And I know that I get to like just let this go. And immediately they feel like relieved, and elated that they can have this time for themselves. But I think that it is also attributed to the coping skills that they are developing in these moments that they take out that they carve out for themselves. So I want to give you kudos for, assisting people and, going through their transformation, because I have literally seen it. You see some people that you're like, wow, they came in shaking. And then the next retreat, they're coming like, hey, girl, da, 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 da. And you're like, who is this person? It's completely different from the person that I saw in the last retreat. And I can think of like 3 or 4 people that immediately pop into mind where I'm like, man, that transformation was like from one retreat to another. It was incredible.
yeah, it is a beautiful thing to
It
get to
is.
witness. And it's also something that I hold very dear to my heart. Like I think it's such a privilege to be at the front of the room holding that space for you all, because it's you all that are doing the work. I'm just there as, as a voice that you can choose to listen to as we're going through the different parts of the retreat. So I really do it is one of the parts, like the part of the year where I get the most excited is to see, like you said, that not only the transformation from year to year, but also in that short amount of time, like whether it be the aha moments that they're having or that they're like, actually, I want something different for my life. And I've had that experience myself, like on retreats where I go as a participant, where having that time and space to ask myself the deep questions of like, is this what I want for my life? And if it's not, what are the steps that I'm going to take to make a change? And I think that's honestly what has being able to hold the space for others and also take that time for myself
Yeah.
has propelled me in a very fast, what feels like a very fast amount of transformation in a short period of time. And so I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for it. And I always want to give back too, to be like, how can I do this? How can I do more of this?
And you even see the importance of doing this for yourself, Johanna, because I think a lot of us, if you're out there and you're a facilitator that's thinking about whether you should be a participant, you should 100% be a participant, because it is so important for you to also, take care of yourself. You're guiding folks and whatever. And even though you may have this knowledge already, putting it into practice is a whole nother thing. And putting it into practice for yourself is very different. And it's so important because you're constantly giving and holding space for other people. And you too deserve to be held. So yeah, I really encourage, especially those who are facilitators and may be thinking about it. Yeah, you definitely deserve this too. So just wanted to say that.
100%. I think that there are so many folks out there that there is always going to be that resistance for the same reason that anyone has resistance to doing something for themselves, because of the stories that we've been told about, you don't have time for that. Like, that's really
Yeah.
selfish. How are you going to walk away from your family for 5 days, 4 days, or walk away from your job for that time? And it's like, if you don't do it, then you're not going to have anything else left to pour and you're going to burn out. It's going to be,
Yeah.
there's going to be nothing left to pour, and it's not going to come from a place of joy, fulfillment. Like, really, taking that time for yourself can have such an incredible impact on your life. And the other thing
Yes.
I'll call out before we wrap is like, we'll also spend time at the retreat talking about integration. Like, how do you go back to the real world after you've been on retreat? Like, you've had 5 days or 4 days, however long this period of time is that you're with all these other people who are getting to experience it with you. Like, how do you go back into the real world.
You know why I'm laughing? Because I'm literally like, every time I have to leave a retreat, I'm like, if you could imagine like the claws in the dirt, like, no, don't drag me back. I'm always the last person to leave. Like, I'm like, all right, they're kicking us out now. I gotta go. But yeah, it's that I'm gonna actually be the front of your class for that one, because that's always the hardest part for me, is the transitioning back into actual life. I mean, if it were up to me, I'd just be, selling coconuts at the retreat for the rest of my life.
Yeah, reintegration is hard because as soon as you leave, something inevitably is going to happen that's going to test. You're in that place of la la land is what I would call it, because you're vibrating so high. You've just spent so much time in community, you feel replenished, and then like the first thing comes in that's going to shock your nervous system, and you're like, whoa,
wait,
like
what?
maybe you get cut off and you get some crazy driver that's like spewing hatred at you. I think there are so many different little things. Sometimes when I'm driving away from the retreats, I'm like, oh wait, hold on, I'm also back in the real
You're
world.
back. You've got this like cheesy grin, and people are like, what is wrong with you?
Why are
And
you
you're
so
right.
happy?
You're right. You're on a high. But you know what? I feel like, yes, the reintegration is important, but just keep booking retreats. I mean, this is the way to get over that. It's like a retreat hangover. Just keep retreating.
And with that being said, you can learn more about Jannelle and all of the different types of trips that she hosts around the world. She's got a couple coming up, right? Tulum, and then there are some I think I saw for 2025 that are going to be Morocco.
We do have a Morocco trip coming up. We've got Cartagena, Colombia, which is awesome. And we do have another Ghana trip that's coming up too. So for anyone that's interested in those trips and more, absolutely visit www.groove-trips.com.
Perfect. And all of that information will be in the show notes. If you're interested in joining us on the Equinox retreat to Tulum, 5 days, 4 nights, and there is a special discount for you all. Look at the show notes to find it. And we hope to see you there with us. But Jannelle, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Johanna. Take care, guys.